Hello everyone, welcome to Global BizApps Weekend 2021, powered by D365 Champs. It's day 2 today, and we have completed half of the sessions for today, and we hope you are doing well and keeping safe. And I am Venkat Subbarao City moderating this session along with Sagar. This session is presented by Triparna Ray. So Triparna will be talking about Power BI, row-level security, what, why, and how, and a brief introduction about Triparna. So she is a senior solution architect in MS Analytics and Power BI with more than 2 decades of experience, 21 plus years of experience, and in that 15 plus of years experience in design, development, and implementation of Microsoft BI solution. And she is an architect. She played the roles of architect and technical lead in delivering applications in Microsoft BI stack, SSIS, SSIS, SSRS, and SQL and Power BI. And moreover, she is speaking this. She is taking this particular session from the Sweden. And before I hand over the session to Triparna, I would like to mention that if you have any queries, please feel free drop it in the chat window. We will take them either during the session, if possible, or during the Q&A time. Thank you again for joining and enjoy the session. Triparna, over to you.
Thanks, Venkata. Thanks. I will just share my screen. Yeah, hi, welcome everyone for this session, and thanks for taking time and coming here and joining the session. So this is the Global BizApps weekend, and we are having great time with the amazing sessions. And thanks to the sponsorer DAM History for arranging, and of course the goodies by Microsoft. So today's topic, we will be talking about the row level security, what, why, and how. So when I last presented in D365 Champs, I had the pleasure to have an introductory session on Power BI. And there I had seen like lots of interests on row level security. There were a lot of questions and people were working a lot on this one, and they had a lot of interest and challenges. So I thought that we can have a separate session on this one where we can deep dive on this session. So just a brief introduction. Already Venkata has mentioned about myself. So I'm working as a BI architect and Power BI consultant with IBM. So I have been like working on various solutions across different domains like automobile or finance now, and in geographies as well. So I have been working with most of the like community events and also participating in hackathon. So you can reach me at LinkedIn, just search as Triparna Ray, or Twitter Triparna Ray 123 is a handle, or you can just drop me an email at triparnaray@gmail.com. So all the slide and recording will be available, like the links and everything, in triparnaray.com website. So we will just go through like few minutes I will spend on the slides, and the entire session today will be hands-on on the demo, where we will see how we can really implement row level security. So we will just cover briefly on the what is row level security to give a background, why we need it, like what kind of use cases provoke us to implement row level security in our solution, because each and every solution will not need it necessarily. And then we will see how we can do it. What are the like basic steps or the pillars we need to consider in implementing it. And then we will see the demo. So you can stop me anytime, like I will just ask the moderator for question and answer at certain points in the session, and we can take it at the end as well. So starting with row level security. What is row level security? It's the row level security in Power BI, because we can have the row level security in data source and other areas as well, in Cube as well. But today we will be focusing on Power BI, how we can implement on the Power BI side. So it usually what it does, it does a restriction of the data access for a given users. So basically all the users should not have access to all the data. So as you can see in this diagram, so this is particular data is available for particular users. What it does is it has all the data in a single place, but particular person needs to be assigned to a particular data. And the access is like restricted to a row level.
Second, Triparna moderators, can you have a look at background noise? Somebody's mic is on.
Yeah, thank
Sorry,
you.
Triparna, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So it is a restriction of the row level based on your user's identity, role, and the execution context in which you are working on it. So entire access logic, be it many-to-many, be it directly or static or dynamic, whichever kind of row level security is, but entire logic is centralized. And that brings the application transparency that, okay, people are able to see what they should supposed to see, right? So we will be talking about two kinds of RLS here: static row level security, which gives a specific roles created for specific people to access it, or dynamic row level security, where we will have a common role, but it will work in a dynamic way. Why we need it? What kind of scenarios we have? So sometimes we have like, okay, a particular country application should have access for that data of that particular country. Again, another country should have access to their data only. And then user specific access. For example, I am a salesperson. I have sent some surveys and I should be able to see only my surveys, not other surveys or some sales data. And then there can be some profile. For example, I'm giving like salesperson and talking about surveys, because today we will be taking the use case of an automobile company where we are sending out the surveys for a particular salesperson for dealers for that organization. So if I am assigned to some dealer, that dealer should have access to only those surveys for that particular dealer. And the next one is the organizational hierarchy. So we have use cases where like different departments have different access. So I should be able to see data for my department and not the data for other department. How we can go about it? So for building this, we always need to take these basic steps. So one is using the users, that is the user name and the user principal name, and then roles. So we need to define the roles in the Power BI desktop file, PBIX file. Then third one is the rules that we define that, okay, how these roles will work using the filters having DAX formula. And the fourth one, we may or may not need it, that is on the data model on the relationship. So mostly for the dynamic row level security, sometimes we need this data model or relationships. Once we build it, we are happy with it, but we need to test it that whether the data is being shown as per the specific roles. So in desktop, we have an option of view role as. We will just get into the demo in a minute. And then in service, it depends on the workspace role. So as we know, in the Power BI workspace, there is different roles, like for example, admin, contributor, member, viewer. But only viewer will be able to have the RLS applied to his or her. It's not for the others. Others, if you have a member, he or she will be able to see anything, everything he will be able to see. So dataset security is another one where we need to add that person or the role for that particular security. And then taste role as. This is an option that is given where we personify as that user. Like I am personifying myself as James and seeing that, okay, what James will see with this setting. So it can work in two levels. One is user account can be directly added. Another one is Active Directory group can be directly added. So for the organization which is maintaining in the Active Directory, they can do this one. So we'll come to the considerations at the end. Now let's jump on to the. So this one is like very specific small data sets which I have created just for a sample for us to understand better. So first, let's see the data set. So here we have a simple dealers. So these are few dealers and the respective countries. And then we have some surveys. So what these dealers are doing is they are selling the cars. Few cars are used cars and few are new cars. And then they are sending the surveys and they are getting some scores, some ratings for their surveys of how they did the customer service. So now what we need to do is, now Poland and Belgium, we can see two types of data here. So these Poland and Belgium will be able to see this data, and Belgium should see their data, Poland should see their data. So how we set it? We set it through static row level security. So what we do here is we come to this modeling tab and then we come to this one, manage role as. This is the one which is being used for row level security setup, and then view as is used for row level security testing. So mostly these two we will be using on desktop, and mostly we will be seeing how it is working in the service. So here we just create, because we know that it works on 2 countries. So we create one as Belgium dealer and we put the filter on the country. We say where the country equal to Belgium. So we have a syntax checker on the top because this is a DAX expression. And then we create another one where we called Poland dealer. You can give underscore, you may not give, so it doesn't matter. Now for this one, we just give this country as Poland. Now we save this. We are happy with this. Now we need to see how it works in the service. So we will just upload this in RLS demo, the new workspace which I've created for our demo purpose today. So if we go here, we can see, I can see all the data because I'm the author of the report and I'm the admin of the workspace. So I will be able to see everything. Whatever is my ID doesn't matter. So now I have created for demo purpose another ID, and we will see how that person looks at the data. So for that, what we need to do is we need to go to this static row level security. Before that, I just wanted to show in front of you that we need to add James, one of the users which I have created for this testing purpose. So James Parker, I'm adding as a viewer to the workspace so that RLS is applicable to him. Otherwise, if he's member of something, RLS will not be applicable. Another step what we need to do is we need to go to this data set, and for example, for Belgium dealer, we are adding James and we are saving it here. So he is part of the Belgium dealer role, so he should be only seeing the Belgium data. Now here I have just logged in as James. If you see here, I've logged in as James. So now if I go to this workspace and RLS demo and go to this static one, then we will be able to see he is only able to see Belgium data and not Poland data. This is the way we can easily implement without any code or any kind of data model changes. We can simply go ahead and implement the static row level security. But for example, today this car company is in 2 places, right? 2 countries. Tomorrow 6 months, 1 year down the line, they do it for 10 countries and they have 100 of the salesperson working with them. Then it's very difficult to add James. Tomorrow Jack comes in to the dealership. They need to come and add here manually. So that is fine for 10 salesperson or 2 countries, but that is not fine for 100 salesperson. So we will just move on to see what we can do as a dynamic row level security, which will work in a more dynamic way, where we don't need to set each and every salesperson or the dealer. So here for the salesperson, just let's go and check on the data set first of all. So in the data set, we have these salespersons. So Triparna and James I'm taking for example today, and these are their email IDs with which they log into Power BI, and these are their salesperson ID. And then we have these surveys. So surveys are for these dealers, for these card types, and for this scores. And each of these surveys are assigned to one or the other salesperson. So when James logs in, he should be able to see his surveys and not any other surveys. So that is our use case here. So what we need to do here is we again need to go to dynamic, this modeling tab, manage roles. But this time we will not create separate, because if we create separate, then we need to create for 4 or 5 salesperson. So we will create a single one called salesperson. And here we will just put filter on the email address. And as I mentioned, like this email address is being, so this is the DAX function, user principal name, which gives us the which email address has logged in. So that will be filtering this email address, and that in turn will filter the surveys. So James should be able to see what he or his surveys only. Now we save this, we publish it. So this is a simple way of implementing the dynamic row level security. So we are just having one role, and that will work dynamically for all the salespersons. So we'll just upload it. So when we create some report, we need to take some step where, as you can see, I can see all the data. But here, if we come and dynamic row level security, we just need to, but if tomorrow you add one column or you make some changes, you don't need to add it here, because James will be already added to this data set. Just one time thing that we need to perform here. And once we have this, we go back to, I will just refresh this. And we get to dynamic row level security. So here we can see James is only seeing his things, right? His surveys, which he has sent out. It can be for multiple dealers, but it matters about the salesperson. So James has logged in with his ID, we can see here. And with his ID, he is able to see only his surveys and not other surveys. So this is about the simple use case for dynamic row level security. So Venkata, do we have any questions at this point?
Triparna, there is no questions so far.
Yeah,
No
sure.
questions.
So now we will move on to a bit complex use case, which is the many-to-many relationship, how we will, because that is also a very common use case for implementation of RLS. I will just close this. I think till now it is clear to everyone. Any questions, you can let us know. So that's why I'm just going step by step, but I need to go a bit fast because we have a lot of things to show. So here the use case is, we have multiple dealers for that automobile company, and one salesperson can be assigned to multiple dealers, because I might work for this dealer and tomorrow I might work for that dealer as well. So I should be able to access this dealer data and that dealer data. And next, what happens is, another one dealer can have multiple salesperson, because that is most obvious, right? Because they will not have one salesperson for one dealer. So there the many-to-many relationship comes into picture, because one dealer has many salesperson and one salesperson has many dealers. So how to deal with this? First, we will see how the assignment is working. So we have a table here where we are assigning the salesperson to the dealers. So if we notice this a bit closely, then we will see that Triparna is assigned to Poland, because Poland might have 4 dealer groups and they might have 20 dealers. So, but for the system, for the application, whoever is doing this mapping, it does not make sense for them to go and map Triparna to each and every 20 of the dealers, right? So they just want to mention it on the high level, and then you take care of how you of the security using this assignment. Next, Triparna is also involved nowadays to another dealer group, which is in Belgium. So she should be able to access only that dealer group data in Belgium. Next, so she is having both, right? And then James is also having access to dealer group 4 and dealer group 1 for Poland. So this assignment is done, and using this assignment, we need to come up with a mapping. And this mapping should be on the dealer name level, because this is the lowest level where we are working. So the surveys are being made available in dealer level. So dealer will decide that who will set what, and the salesperson assigned to that dealer. So using this one, we can do it in SQL, or we can do it in Excel, or in Power BI. We have to come up with a mapping table, and the mapping table should look like this. It should have the dealer and salesperson. So here, if we can just observe that Triparna is assigned to all the Poland dealers. So that will decide that what she will have access to. Once we have this data ready with us, along with that, we have a dealer hierarchy where we are maintaining this country, dealer group, and dealer name associated with it. So Poland has a certain set of dealer groups, and that dealer group will have certain set of dealers. Then we have the salesperson, the usual salesperson table. So salesperson and the email addresses. And then we have the set of surveys, as we see for other examples as well. Dealer group, card type, and NPS score for the surveys. Now, to implement this, let's see how the relationship is there. Assignment we are not using, because we have used this data to come up with this one-to-one mapping. Now we have the salesperson, we have the mapping table, we have the dealer master, basically dealer hierarchy, and then we have the surveys where we have the surveys data. Now what we want is, we want this email address. If we like filter this email address in our role when we define this, so this email address should filter the dealers here. So whoever is a salesperson, the dealers should be for only those salesperson, and then this salesperson should take on these dealers only, and these dealers should filter that only the dealers applicable for that salesperson, and then those surveys should be shown to me which belongs to my dealers only. So the filters should flow from here to here to here to here. But here we see a problem, because the filter is not flowing from here to here, it is on the other way around. So if we put a filter on email address, it will not work by default. So here we can take a simple step here, because Power BI supports bidirectional relationship. So we can make this filter direction both, and we can apply the security filter for both the directions. And we click on OK, and now we can see the filter is flowing from here down to here. And now here we can just come here. Just create one role called salesperson. We save it, we publish it. We need to take the same step here, because this is our new report. So we'll just add James. So we will go to this James's ID, and here we see that whichever 3 dealers he is available, only 3 dealers, he doesn't need to like know or understand also or see also that what are the other dealers there, because he is only assigned to these dealers. So he should be seeing only these dealers and the surveys associated with these dealers. So if you can see, like dealer 1 Poland has 2 surveys, one is new car, one is used car. So this is coming like this. And for Belgium, dealer 3 and dealer 4. So this is what James is working. So this way easily our many-to-many relationship can be handled. But if we go back, we will see that we have a problem here. What is the problem? Problem is with this relationship, because this bidirectional relationship is supported, but it brings some ambiguity to the model, because every time on the runtime it tries to equalize that which direction it should evaluate the filter as. So it's better to avoid that, because it affects the performance as well. So if we avoid it, we need to see that what alternative we can do to make it still working. So to follow the best practice, we just avoid this bidirectional filter. Now we just go back here and go to the modeling tab, manage roles. We'll clear this filter and we will put this filter on the dealer hierarchy, on the dealer name. Just for the interest of time, I have created and using that DAX here. I'll just explain what the DAX is doing. So what it is doing is, it is getting the user principal name. I will make a bit bigger. Yeah. So what it is doing is, it is taking the user principal name here, and it is checking the email ID of that principal name, and then it is getting the salesperson for that email address. So this is using the lookup value. So others can be used as related, other DAX function can also be used, but this should be achieved, that in turn it is checking the salesperson of the mapping table, and that is filtering the dealer name. So this is a simple DAX we are writing here for the filters to propagate through DAX, because it will not happen through the model now. So if we go back here, what we are trying to do here is, we are putting our filter here. So this will filter in turn this one, and DAX will ensure that we get that salesperson for this. So that way it will flow, and anyway, if this dealer is filtered, it will anyway filter the surveys. So let's see how this approach works. So now this report already exists, so we are just replacing it for the new logic. So this time, if we come and check here, we will see that already in this, James is added. So we don't need to add every time. So now if we refresh the report, now this report is using the new logic, but still we can see it is working in the way that we have expected to do so. So this is a common scenario where we need to implement the row level security, and we can handle it with a bidirectional filter or by implementing best practices, which is the more recommended option. So Venkata, any question at this point? Because I will just move on to the next use case otherwise.
Triparna, there is no questions.
Yeah. I hope it's clear to everyone.
Yeah, you are going good.
So this time we will move on to further use case where it is organizational hierarchy. So in organizational hierarchy, it may that I am a salesperson, I am reporting to my manager is reporting to another manager, but this chain of reportees, right, they should be able to see their own data. They should not be seeing, like, I have another colleague and he is reporting to another manager, so he should not be seeing his data. So this chain should be maintained in terms of data accessibility. So you can like think of having as a department as well. So I should be able to see the data of my department and not the data of other department. So this is taking up now because it has some complexity in our definition. So what is happening here is we have a employee ID. So this is the ID field. Here we have the employee. So Triparna, James, and everyone is there. And then we have this manager ID. So this is the field. So we should have employee ID, we should have employee name, and we should have manager ID. So manager ID, what it is doing is, if you see Triparna, the manager ID is 5. Means this is the person with whom Triparna is reporting on. So this is dealer 1 Poland manager. And then we have this manager 13. So he is reporting to 13. So if we go to 13, then we will see dealer group 1 manager is 13. And he is reporting to 17. 17 is the highest in Poland, which is the Poland manager. This way the hierarchy is working. But now how Power BI will understand that whether you belong to this hierarchy or not. For that, what we need to come up with is a path. Path function in DAX. So this one, what is doing is path is giving us the path where we are passing the employee ID and the manager ID. And it is coming up with a this kind of, so first is 17. So first is 17, then 13, then 5, then 1. So 1 is reporting to 5, 5 is reporting to 13, 13 is reporting to 17. So this function, path function is being given by like from DAX, it is available for us to work with hierarchy. Once we have that, we can get level 1. So each of these, so we can pass this, I'm just treating with till 3rd level just for demo purpose, but we should cater to all the levels that can potentially exist. So here we have this 13 and we have the level 1. So this is the path function that we are passing, the result of this path. This is the position and this is the integer output. So for this case, it is the integer output. So we are passing 1. So this is level 1 we got. We got level 2 and we got level 3. So these are the corresponding ones. And then using this level 1, level 2, level 3, we came up with this level 1 name. So what it is using the lookup value, it is passing the employee name, employee ID, and which name we want the name for level 1. So level 1 name, it gives. Same way we have the level 2 names. We will just come in a second that why we need these names. So then it has the level 3 names. Now what we can do is, we have the hierarchy facilities in Power BI where we can just, for example, we need to make the hierarchy from here. Create hierarchy, we can click on this. So we have just created this hierarchy called employee hierarchy. We can rename this. And then we have added to this hierarchy level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 3 reporting to level 2, level 2 reporting to level 1. And we can use this hierarchy in multiple places. Like for example, this is a custom visual of hierarchy slicer, or we can have the usual slicer as well. Or I will just bring here matrix visual, for example, where we can have this added. So what we need to do is we just need to drag and drop this. And if you expand it, we can see that we can see the entire chain of how these are managed. So this is how the hierarchy looks. So hierarchy is very useful features where people can select just from the top or whichever level they want to select, they can select that. So just of this one. So now we will need that, okay, James should see this, and when his manager logs in, he should be able to see only about this. So how we go about for that? We just go to this modeling tab, and again just for the interest of time, I've already coded this. So what we are doing is we are adding the filter for the employee, and what we are checking here is, so what we are checking here is path contains. This is another DAX function which is given to us to work with the hierarchies. Then path, employee, employee ID, employee manager, and then we are getting this to get that path. And then max X, we are getting the filter of employee table we are passing, and we are passing this particular email address of the user principal name and the employee ID. So what it is checking here, if we go back to our data, so if like James logs in today, for example, I'll just show this here. So if James logs in, his ID is 2, right? His employee ID is 2. And it will check that in which hierarchy this 2 exists. So this is the only hierarchy where 2 exists. So he will be able to see the data which belongs to James. After that, I will come another use case. So where I will show if you logged in as a hire manager, then what you see. So this one, James should be able to see. So the path contains will return true or false, that whether this person belongs to this hierarchy or not. So Triparna will not be able to see James's data because her ID is 1, right? So she should not be able to see that. Now let's just publish it. I think though we already have it published. We can just come here and check once whether James is added to our. So James is already added to this report. So if we now log in as James, and see the RLS values, then James is belong to this group. So he is able to see only his hierarchy, and he is able to see where he is the salesperson because James's ID is 2, right? I just specifically kept it for us to see. So James, whatever his survey is, he is only able to see this much and not the data beyond that because he is in this level, right? So he should be able to see where he is having the ID. I think it is clear to everyone. Now we are just moving to the next one, the last one, where I have just manipulated the data a bit because we have only one user here, right, for our demo purpose, James. So what I have done is I have assigned James to a higher level manager. So this manager's ID is now James. So he will personify a higher group level manager at this point. So if you see the data now, you should close some of the tabs. So I've just replaced this, just make it a bit bigger. I've just replaced this James's ID. I have put here so that we can personify him as a dealer 4 group manager. So he's the dealer 4 group manager. Here is James ID, and this number 2 is now a different ID. But we have the same code here. So it will dynamically work for a hire manager, and we will see what he or she should able to see. So path contains, so his ID now is 16. So he should be able to see whatever like 16 is there, right? So here 16 is there, here 16 is there. So he should be able to see the people who are under him. If they have data, but we just have the data for James now. So we can just publish it. I think we already have it published. So we can see here that as a group 4 manager, he is able to see his hierarchy only, and he is able to see his data and James's data because they all belong to the same hierarchy of the organization. So you can consider it as the same department or something. So this is how they have this. So this is how we can obtain this by using this path contains function, because 16 is giving us true value for multiple paths here, right? So how this is working is here we are getting the IDs for this path as well and this path as well. So wherever it is getting to see this data. So if we have some data for 12 as well, because 12 is under him, he will be able to see. But 13 will not be able to see their data. So this is how it is like organizationally arranged and it is separated out. So that is how we can get it for the row level security for the organizational hierarchy system. Now, any question, Venkata?
Triparna, there is no question.
Okay. So now these are the use cases, like common use cases, which I wanted to show in today's demo. And when we are implementing, I just wanted to cover a few of the considerations which we should take into account when we are going for RLS. So RLS is like any of these use cases, or you might have something else. I've just picked up the very common use cases where we would like to see RLS implemented. So when we have to do this because of the business requirement, we should take into consideration few of the impact and how it works and where it works. So for example, one is the model performance is impacted because every time the data is being taken out from the data set, it cannot do it straight away. It always needs to go through RLS, that is an additional layer of logic, and then it is being shown to the particular user. So the performance is impacted. It makes a model a bit larger because you have seen like we have this user table needs to be maintained, and then we need to have this mapping table. So all these things is will make the model a bit more complex, bit more larger. And then when we have the Power BI report have the option to publish on web. But if we publish on web, it will show on web whatever we have published at that point in time, right? It will not have anything on the fly because it is just a static web page where it is published. Then bidirectional filters, as I mentioned, like we need to see how we can avoid it or in what scenario we would need it really. So that is one of the considerations. Then thin report. Thin report concept is like for these reports, we have the data and the report in the same file, right? Because just for demo purpose, we have this, but in many of the organizational, our real-time work also, we have this kind of scenario. But it is a good practice when multiple reports are being created from the same data set. It's better to have the data set in a central place and define all the logic, including the RLS there, and then create the thin reports based on that single data set. So when we are creating these thin reports, then we don't apply the security on the thin report. So we don't have the option of this modeling and having this option of thin reports. So we need to define the security on the data set file where our model sits. So it is model driven, it is defined on the model level. So if we think that, okay, this thin report, we will define this RLS or that RLS, that will not happen. It is centralized on the data set where we are going for that centralized shared data set concept. Same thing applies for Azure Analysis Service or Analysis Service as a source is we are using for Power BI. Then the row level security has to be defined on the analysis service or the Azure Analysis Service side and not on the Power BI side, because Power BI is working as a thin report there, right? It is just using this live connection here. So if we go here, it just works here as a live connection. We just go here and logs into this Power BI dataset. We use it when we have a shared dataset, or otherwise for the analysis services. If we leave here, we will see that it's live connection. So the data is not sitting within the Power BI model, but the data is sitting in the analysis service. So that is the way how we can use this one. And I will just have, I think, couple of minutes. If we don't have any question, I will just try to show the view option as well, what we have in the desktop, because once we define it, we can use this view option to check that whether the RLS is working or not. Similar option we have in service as well. I will just show in a minute. So here we have manage roles and view as. So this view as is used for our testing purpose. So if we view as, for example, Belgium dealer, we can see that, okay, whoever is assigned to this Belgium dealer, what they see. So so here it will be showing as now viewing as Belgium dealer. So whoever will be assigned, so we are personifying ourselves as a Belgium dealer, because I, as an admin or as an author of the report, I will be able to see everything every time. So how I will ensure that my code works. So Belgium dealer, if we are viewing as, we will see at this one. Then again, you can click on stop viewing. It will get back to the normal one. So this is one of the testing option from the desktop. And on the service, let me go to my workspace, because I am the owner or the author. Now I want to see that how look into service, because I am not, this is just for demo purpose. I am logged in with James, but in real life, I will not be logged in as James, right? So I need to see that how James will see the data. So I can just copy James's ID maybe here. So here we have an option of taste as role. So we can see, if we see the Belgium data, the data will look like this. Here we can put some email ID as well. So as James is assigned to this, we can see he is able to see only Belgium data and not Poland data. So we are personifying here as James, and we are seeing how the RLS is getting applied. This is one of the option for testing it from service, because the author or the owner will not have the access to see that how the RLS is being applied, right? So this is the one that will help us to do this. So any questions, any challenges you are facing, or anything is not clear, we can cover.
Triparna, there are no questions so far.
Okay.
You can share some trick and tips if you have. We have some minutes.
Yeah.
I have one question actually. This was
Yeah.
raised by only last time, Triparna.
Yeah.
So can we say a row level access or security? So we generally or majorly works with other business applications like Dynamics 365. Now, authentication at the Power Apps is the same as Azure AD. Okay, but the structure, data access, and everything is a bit different in both the applications. BI is actually an analytical tool, but in Dynamics we have an option that we can go and embed Power BI reports into Dynamics 365. So we regularly come to this requirement where the customer asks if, say, Vivek is logged in and there is an embedded Power BI report for Vivek Patil, how the only data related to him will be shown to Vivek and not others' data. So will that also be supported with the configurations which we showed, Otherwise, because we had another option that we can go and hard code the user ID and then check the other things. So is there any easier way?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So when we are doing this, so we have defined the RLS on this one, but our RLS is working on user principal name, right? So the person who has logged into. So if you are using that ADID and that ADID is getting passed, then it will be able to show his or her data. And for general web application, also we can, like for example, someone has a standalone web application, there also it's possible to have this RLS effective, but there we need to ensure that we pass this ID somehow back to the Power BI dataset. And the same way, like it will work for the Dynamics 365 because it is based on that ADID. And how is it like user principal name when it is saying, so it will be able to get that user principal name on the fly, or we need to code something, because the only thing that Power BI needs is the email ID with which he or she has logged in. So if
So
that is available, yeah.
so for that we need to write down something code, because we generally get the grid, and from that grid we have to kind of write some extra query to
Code.
get the
Yeah.
KPI.
So only thing we need to ensure is this James ID we were seeing, right? So that ID should be like, yeah, available.
Okay.
So that ID, if it gets passed, then because the data set is centrally, and we will be able to see that data, how it is centrally, right? So we don't have any problem for that one.
Right. So do we need to means it's kind of we need to create some bridge table where we maintain all the grids plus their UPN IDs, and then based on which is the UPI ID, it will get populated in the data, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because somehow it should filter that and it should get that data
Yeah.
which is like related to this one. So for like we have other Power BI report capabilities also, like paginated report or anything people might think of, like how it will get effective. So how it will get effective is whatever is centrally defined in the data set, whether you create a paginated report out of it, you create a out of it, or you embed in some other application, it will work based on the data set that is being driven. Based on the RLS that is defined on the data set. So that is how like it will be like centrally controlled. So this is like on the Power BI side, but this is like specifically on the row level security. So if we have 100 records, it will define that what is 10 records and doing, and how you are getting access to the 10 records and not all other records. This will ensure that one. But if you like ask that, okay, I want to show this measure or hide this measure, so row level security is not for that. Or object level security, I want this table not to be visible at all. So the salary table, for example, or salary column, that is not for this one. This one is like the row level security, like where certain data is applicable for my organization or my dealer or my ID, that should be available to me. So that is what like the use case behind this row level security, and it works for imported mode also and in direct query also in Power BI. So that way it is useful.
So there is another thing like
Yeah.
in Power BI reports we can have the clicks and then moving to the next another report, right? Where we say if I get some 5 users in one of my chart, and if I click on one of the username, and when I see the details of that particular user, so I think it's a filtered one, not the row level security, right?
Yeah, row level security means again that person who is viewing the report, it will be applicable as per that person's ID, right?
Right.
Yeah. So even if you share the dashboard, you can share to, like for example, James I have added, but tomorrow Jack comes to your team and you are sharing the report with Jack, but not knowing that Jack is not added or anything. But then Jack will not be able to see because his ID is not added or configured here. And when I just like missed to show that, like the same place where we are adding Jack, right, in the security tab. So there now we have a single user, so that's why we are adding the single user. But in real life, mostly it is the AD group where we are configuring. So tomorrow, if some new team member comes, he will be placed in the respective AD groups. So if his AD groups has that ID, then his ID will be considered in evaluating the RLS, and he will be getting the respective data to be shown. But if his ID, for example, is not added at all, and he just comes and see the report, then he will not be able to see. He will just see like cross like that in the Power BI report.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other confusion or questions, comments?
No comments on the chat.
Okay.
So Triparna, any
Yeah.
changes in the licensing in these few days? Maybe there are some announcement that was happened in Ignite, right? With respect to Power BI and all. Are there any changes, or we good on that?
No, like, yeah, basic, there is no changes, because the most important one that is that was like latest applied was the premium per user. So this is important topic actually. Thanks, Venkata, for bringing this. Like, RLS will be applicable, or it is possible to be implemented for pro users also and premium users also. And now we have premium per user. For example, there are like there is an organization where that organization is not having 500 users, they have 50 users. So it doesn't make sense for them to pay $5,000 per month to get the premium capacity, right? So they can go for $20 per month, and they can go for this premium per user. So that is one option they have, which Microsoft has come up with, because they would need the premium features, but they don't have that many users, 500 or 1,000 users, to go for premium capacity. But RLS is supported in both, because there are many features which are supported in premium and not in pro, but RLS is supported in both. Yeah, thanks.
Venkata, you are on mute.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Is there any question from one can unmute if they have any question?
Yeah, you can straight away ask as well.
I guess we don't have anyone.
I think my contact details are shared, like Venkata. So
yes,
that,
we have shared
people
all
can-
your
okay.
social media. So one can connect with Triparna over there for your queries.
Yeah, once the recording is available, I will be putting in my website, triparna.com, and the deck also will be available to go through in more detail if you want to see through. And then you can connect me in LinkedIn or Twitter, or drop me an email, anything is fine.
Okay, so yes, thank you so much everyone for joining. We really appreciate your presence. We hope that you are taking away some powerful learnings from this session. Also, I would like to thank Triparna for an amazing session on Power BI row level security, what, why, and how, and
Thanks.
sharing her knowledge with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sagar. Thanks, Venkata. It was a pleasure to coming back to D365 Champs, and I really enjoyed and appreciate having me here. Thank you.